Have you ever heard of the story of the Waterwitch tragedy? I'm Helen Eskin, author and crime historian. The schooner Waterwitch sailed out of St. John's Harbor on November 29, 1875, and into a storm that would change the lives of everyone on board. Within hours, they would be in a fight for survival that would lead to one of Newfoundland and Labrador's most daring rescues. Captain Samuel Spratlin had sailed to St. John's from his home port of Cupid's to sell the last of the summer's fishing catch. But the company on board his ship, the Waterwitch, wasn't its usual crew of fishermen. Instead, as many captains did at that time, Spratlin had brought family, friends, and neighbors along for the year-end trip to St. John's to shop for winter provisions and toast the close of another fishing season. There were 25 people in all on board, and they must have been a merry crowd. Half of them were young people in their late teens and 20s, including 3 of Spratlin's own sons and 2 daughter-in-laws. Around sunset on November 29, 1875, once all of their supplies had been loaded onto the ship, they sailed northbound for home. Soon, the wind picked up and the crew lost sight of the coast in a blinding snowstorm. Thinking more than enough time had gone by for the ship to have passed Cape St. Francis at the northern tip of the Avalon Peninsula, the crew turned west into Conception Bay, but the wind had slowed their progress. Suddenly, cliffs loomed up on either side of them in the night. They were caught in Horrid Gulch, more than 2 miles short of the Cape. The forceful waves, whipped up by the gale, pushed the Waterwitch against the rocks. Knowing the hull couldn't withstand such a battering, 2 of the men risked their lives by taking a flying leap from the quarterdeck to the north cliff face. They landed on a small outcropping. The next time the ship neared the cliff, more men jumped out to join them. Clutching each other on the slippery ledge, they watched as the Waterwitch broke apart and sank beneath the angry surf. They thought everyone else had been lost until, over the roaring of the wind, they heard the captain's shouts. 4 men had managed to make it off the vessel to the opposite cliff face, where the drop, slightly less sheer, held them. Despite the storm, 3 of them decided to try and scale the slippery rocks, leaving the 4th, one of Spratlin's sons, behind to keep in good cheer the poor creatures on the other side. Well, slowly, they climbed hundreds of feet into the darkness. Then, when they reached the top, walked 1.5 miles to Pooch Cove for help. Meanwhile, the men stranded on the north side of the gulch were at the mercy of the elements. According to survivor George Thomas Noseworthy, the spray dashed over us constantly, and every 20 minutes or so, a large sea would come and dash right over us. I was almost gone once. We had to crouch and cling close together when we saw the sea coming. The first party of rescuers arrived at the gulch in the wee hours of the morning. Local Anglican priest Reverend Reginald Johnson recalled, "We could hear their cries all night below us. It was frightful." With few options to reach them, a man named Alfred Moores volunteered to be lowered down the cliff by a rope tied around his waist. He was swung out over the abyss 4 times before he found a crevice he could use to descend. Finally, he landed on a ledge some 500 feet down from where he could see the survivors below him. Using the cord running from Alfred to the summit, several other Pooch Cove men climbed down and stationed themselves at various points along the line, forming a relay to help the exhausted survivors to the top. One by one, they tossed a long rope down to the men, and one by one, they hauled them up. The last to be rescued was 16-year-old James Wells, who had jumped to the cliff face at some distance from the others and spent the night clinging to the rocks, half dressed with only 1 boot on. Though through their ingenuity and bravery, the people of Pooch Cove saved 13 men that November night. 24 men participated in the rescue effort, and 6 of them were awarded the medal from the Royal Humane Society for risking their own lives to save others. 12 souls perished in the wreck, including all 4 women on board who were unable to jump to safety. The Spracklen family lost 6 members. In Cupid's the following week, the newly built Methodist Church opened its doors to host a solemn first service, the funeral for the victims. In a town of only 1,300, more than 2,000 mourners turned out to pay their respects. If you like Newfoundland and Labrador history, like, follow, and share.